I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
Did we continue to have to say that every week?
You know what? The answer is yes, even though hopefully people have figured out where the CRM play is by this time after 12 years of drilling it into their brains.
That doesn't sound too attractive the way you just
No,
put it.
not particularly. Actually, now that I
But
say that, can you edit that out?
yeah, well, when they come up with a tool that allows you to edit out live stream stuff
And
we'll
then turn back time a little bit.
Well, H.G. Wells may have already done that. We don't know. But anyway, we are the CRM Playaz. It is Thursday afternoon. And I think that's a good thing.
Well, it's a good thing that there is a Thursday afternoon, which allows for the fact that means there was a Thursday morning and there will be a Thursday evening, most likely.
Let's hope so. But we know one thing. Sven is in the house.
Whoa, way to go. Newly published thought leader author Sven.
Oh, it's up?
Way. It's up.
Do a plug.
Yeah, it's here. I'll maybe I don't know. I'll find the link and then okay, but we saw Adrian. Hey man, I know why he's on because Vanilla Forums his communities and also has some he's probably interested in what's going to be we're going to say about the Journey orchestration company that got acquired. Hey, Christy.
Miller time. It's always well. Actually, I never was a big Miller fan.
Me either.
Well, Steve Miller Band.
Right. Fair enough. There. Right. Steve Miller. It's Steve Miller time. And but if you're going to drink Miller Lite. It's only 95 calories. That's what they always say.
I just never liked the taste of Miller.
So I don't like the taste of beer particularly. So.
I kind of grown out of it a bit.
Yeah. Do you drink anything alcoholic?
I would consider myself a social drinker. And so I've been locked in this house for like 2 years now. So there's no social. And if there's no social, I don't want to be in my house just liquoring it up by myself. That would not be a good way to go.
Especially during a Rams game.
No, that could be a
tragic. That'd be by the first quarter, it'd be too late.
By the way, since you mentioned it,
yeah,
look at my hat.
Well, it's gorgeous, but there's not your Audio Technica headphones are blocking anything above
you
it.
Can't see the logo.
No, it's the logo is clear.
That's what I'm talking about.
What logo the hell is that?
This is the very first Cleveland Ram logo design. Yeah, this is what it looked like back in the 30s. And actually, and I won't go too low into this thing here, but do you know that the first team ever to put a logo on their helmet were the Rams?
No, I did not know that. And that's the logo that was on their helmet?
The logo. It's the very first logo for an NFL team.
And you know what's interesting? It looks just like an actual Ram.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't like that Ram as much as I like the one that I grew up with.
Well, of course.
That's but
I don't like the Highlanders logo particularly.
Oh, I mean, what is a Highlander? Is that like Duncan, whatever that guy was?
Duncan Ruth. Ruth.
But I had such good luck last week wearing a Cleveland Rams hat. I decided I'd do it again.
This is the carry forward the superstition. Wear the same T-shirt for the next 2 months until the Super Bowl's over and you've won it. Right? So you have to wear the same T-shirt, though.
Shows what is important for the Rams.
I'm not sure what that
means, but
yes, the answer is Sven. Again, you're a published author. We have no disagreements with you.
All right. So did you want to just make a quick shout out to what Sven wrote about?
Well, actually, if I could find it. So Sven, for a long time, a few months ago, actually, we had this discussion at the happy hour, or now then it was still the happy hour, but now it's the even more joyous hour that we do every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. All welcome, on supply chain's impact on customer experience. It's just, again, the discussion that happened to come up. Keep in mind, we're not as intellectually capable as we all sound by having these discussions. We're just like shooting the breeze about them. Okay, so I challenged everybody there could write a post on supply chain and CX and how it impacted. Sven took the challenge, and I have another one in the hopper, but I won't say from whom until I've read it, so I haven't read it yet. Sven took the challenge and wrote basically, there it is, a 3,000 word post on the supply chain's relationship to customer experience. Really fascinating stuff, makes some really good cogent arguments, has some very good examples. There's one particularly about temperature controlled cold storage and ships, and it's done a really good job. So we finally got it in front of the editors. It took a little while of back and forth, but got it up to the editors yesterday, and they put it out there today. And you can I would highly suggest you go to ZDNet and read it. There's a lot of worthy knowledge and information. Sven has a conceptually interesting framework that he talks about. He's not highly specific. There are some specific things, but the idea of this is to set a CX supply chain kind of interoperability of the parts and pieces relationship, right? How do they interrelate? How do they work? What would be a decent framework to be thinking about it, given a customer-centric view of the supply chain? And it's well worth it. Yeah. Nah, this was your ideas, my friend, not mine. So
hey,
it's up.
Sven, drop the link in the comments section so people.
Do us a favor and do that for us. Drop the link in the comments. Thank you.
Very cool.
Whenever it's up.
Very cool. All right. So we do have a first for us. We're breaking out a brand new segment for the show. Well, that'll happen in a couple of minutes. Before we get to that, we did have some pretty breaking news that happened not that long ago, about an hour or so ago.
Yeah, probably about 3 hours now, 2.5 hours. Yeah. Big news.
Go ahead.
Actually, big news for me anyway. I think it was very important. So Thunderhead, who we've been advocates of for a long time on the show, was acquired by Medallia. Now, honestly, I knew that at some point Thunderhead was going to get acquired. They would get funding, whatever. Medallia, although in retrospect, I'll explain in a second, but Medallia was not. I just didn't think they would have the available funds, because Thunderhead, is world-class, leading in its category. So, but they did. And that was announced about 2.5 hours ago. It's public. I've already gotten about 20 people who have sent me the press release link and said to me, most of their comments were roughly of the equivalent of WTF ? Right. Right. So I'm not kidding. Some of them were specifically that, more than one. So look, here's a very simple thing. And then Brent, why don't you weigh in? So if you look at Medallia for a long time, they've gone from, what they used to call enterprise feedback management to customer engagement as their both message, but also as their platform focus. And in the course of that, over the last couple of years or so, went through it got, I forget the name of the company that bought them. I want to say it was Vista, one of those kind of companies, but I don't remember. But they got a new management team, and Leslie Stretch, who is the former CEO of Calidus Cloud, and Rory Cameron, who was running Litmus and came through the Litmus acquisition of Calidus Cloud, who's an Irish raconteur and visionary. Rory, and Leslie are both at Medallia now. And as I said, Leslie's the CEO. So needless to say, that piqued my interest. Callus Cloud was my client for 5 years, and I got to know both of those guys pretty well, and they're great people. And they have claimed for the last couple of years that they have part of their offering is it's journey orchestration. And honestly, it wasn't. They did nothing that I would call journey orchestration that they were offering. They had some journey analytics a little bit. They had a little bit of, I'll call it journey building and a little bit of journey tracking, but nothing that you could in any approximate way call journey orchestration. This acquisition not only gives it to them, but it gives it to them at the top of the class. I mean, you're talking about the company that pretty much owns the orchestration and analytics categories for the Magic Quadrant, for the Waves. They win the watch list. I mean, this is a company that has pretty much been a world-class company since their creation. And, their chief architect, who's good friends of the show and us, is Ray Gerber. And Ray built that. He built that platform. And again, extraordinary platform. And think in mind, this is a platform that not only has orchestration, but it has RTIM too, which is something that I'll put it this way. Medallia was so far from RTIM, they didn't even claim it. So, the thing is that Medallia has just acquired. Well, let me put it in very simple terms. I've been advising Thunderhead for 7.5 years. And I know them incredibly well. In my history as a CRM guy, and this in its own way goes to our other segment, I guess, given that it has to do with CRM history. Esteban.
Digital pestilence.
Truly is throwing cold water, right? So anyway, my favorite product of all time for many years, agree with you there. My favorite product of all time was Epiphany.
Wow.
And it was independent. When it was an independent company, I knew it well. And I loved that product. Yeah. And I've known them probably since 99. And I've known them all the way through their ultimate acquisition by Infor, who, to be candid, I never understood it and completely wasted it. And it's now a shell of what it was. But as an RTIM, as a product, it was my favorite. After understanding Thunderhead for a short while, my favorite product of all time produced in the CRM-ish universe, which is the only universe I pretty much inhabited, is Thunderhead, without a doubt. It's not, and to be honest, not even close anywhere else. It is my favorite product for what it does, how well it does it. And so this acquisition by Medallia, it's great. For Thunderhead, if Medallia is willing to continue to invest in the product, because again, Infor didn't understand Epiphany and let the product decline dramatically. If Medallia is willing to continue to invest in the product, as Esteban said, even if they're not, it'll probably go for another 20 years before anyone even catches up to it. But if Medallia continues to invest in the product, this is a good thing for Thunderhead too. But again, the caveat being continuing to invest in the product at the level that it needs, because this piece is always critical to an engagement platform, right? You're not an engagement platform if you don't have this piece as part of the platform. And there are companies that are close to engagement platforms like Pega who don't quite have orchestration yet. It's their missing piece, for example. On the other hand, they do most everything else right. But in the case of Medallia, they've now really, really upped their game by, I think, a significant amount. And I'm hoping that they get my very public message here. Start investing in that, continue to invest in that product to make it what it can still become, because it dominates already. So there you have it. What do you think?
I think we don't have enough time. So I'm going to go to something else real quick
before
we get into the full segment, but I wouldn't disagree with anything you said. But I want to play. I'm going to play this clip because there was another acquisition that probably got more attention than this one did. Let me see if I can bring that up.
Oh, I know what you're going to bring up.
This is it.
I'll leave this to you.
That's not it. what was that?
That's it. Somebody acquired a microphone.
Wow. Oh, maybe this is it. No, that is definitely not it. Oh, yeah, there it is.
Game-changing deal on Wall Street today. Microsoft announced plans it'll buy the video game maker Activision Blizzard. It's an all-cash deal worth nearly $70 billion. If it closes, Microsoft would expand its already massive Xbox business. It would secure the video game giant known for the popular games including Call of Duty, World of Witchcraft, Tony Hawk's World of Warcraft, I'm to say. Tony Hawk's skater stuff and Candy Crush.
Guy's clearly
in
not
an
a
interview
gamer.
Today on CNBC's Squawk Box, the Microsoft gaming CEO said the deal will go a long way to help his company stay competitive in the metaverse.
We look at the importance to us at Microsoft Gaming of people playing on mobile. We look at the coming metaverse, the opportunities that we need with great IP. We really saw this as an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that part up because then he starts talking about some stuff that don't think is really interesting.
So what do you think?
But 70 billion, my main thought was not too many companies can buy for $20 billion or so Nuance in 2021. And then in 2022, right at the beginning, so it's not even been a full 12 months here, can then buy a company playing in a completely different industry for almost 3.5 times that they spent the year before.
And
we're talking about
cash.
Almost $100 billion in less than a year's time in cash.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's going to be successful or not, but I just like the fact that it happened and that they're doing it. Yeah, it's Microsoft. But how many other companies, you could probably count on your hand the number of companies that can pull that kind of thing off. Now, will it be successful? I don't know, but they're going into a huge market. I think if this acquisition goes through, they become number 3 in that space.
Yeah.
And what the CEO, what do they call him? The CEO of the entertainment
Microsoft
thing,
Gaming.
whatever. Yeah,
Microsoft
gaming. It's not just about the current state. It's about how do you leverage that and what they already have as it moves into the metaverse or whatever you want to call it. I know you don't really like that name, but
I'm going DC all the way. Multiverse for me.
Yeah. So I thought that's really interesting. But you know what? The most interesting thing, and then we will bring our guests in, and I'm sure they may have some thoughts around this. Let me see if I can bring this up. Okay. So I went to YouTube and did a search on Microsoft Activision acquisition. So we're only talking about a day long of people actually being able to do this, talk about this really, or a couple of days, I don't know. But anyway, I just wanted the last day. So if you can see on the screen, now the first two, they are clips from CNBC. So these are guys, got the television channel. They got kind of some of the folks that people know. And of course, this is a big deal. Each video from CNBC, one is 9,400 views. The next one there, about 11,000 views. Pretty good. But look at the ones beneath it. These are no names, at least no names to me. People I have no clue who they are, what they do. Look at the number of views that they have compared to the tried and true, the CNBC. That one that says Sony lost 20 billion. It was only out for 4 hours. And I literally just did this right before we did the show. It's already got 26,000 views. And the one beneath it, some dude named Angry Joe Show. I don't know. I know Morning Joe, but this is Angry Joe.
Yeah,
Look at how many views Angry Joe has in a day compared to CNBC. 542,000 views by some dude named Angry Joe.
So let me tell you something related to that specific thing, because here's the thing. So that's both the strength of how content gets consumed nowadays, and there's a very specific thing there that tells you how problematic this is, because he says Microsoft Xbox buys Activision. He knows what he's saying. He knows, first of all, Microsoft bought it, gaming bought it, not Xbox, but Xbox sets up clickbait, right? And he knows that.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with a guy who's wrong about what he's saying.
And he put the actual dollar amount in there too.
Right.
68 billion.
The guy is doing clickbait, and he's very acquainted with it. And the thing is, again, he's doing clickbait at the expense of actual information, right? He's right about the acquisition amount, but
well, I don't know.
But the Microsoft Xbox,
I don't know what he's saying in the video.
It doesn't matter. His headline alone is designed to bring that kind of views, because he knows Xbox is going to get a hell of a lot more views than just plain old Microsoft.
Well, in his world, which I'm guessing he's big into the gaming space.
Yeah, I'm guessing
the name Microsoft doesn't mean jack without Xbox included.
But he's also willing to twist the actual information. So,
but look where the eyeballs go compared to
different
the
world.
CNBC. It's just fascinating to me, and I'm guessing that our guests that we will be bringing on now.
Oh, wait! Before you do, I just realized then we can change the name of our show to CRM Playaz Station.
Oh my goodness, that is awesome. That is great, actually. I wish I had thought of that one. Jeez.
That's our new show, CRM Playaz Station.
All right. Well, and one last thing before we bring our guests on. This is just a pet peeve of me on mine. Why the hell is LeBron James wearing a Rams hat? He's a notorious Dallas Cowboys fan. Now that he's out in LA, now that in a pink Rams hat?
Exactly.
What the hell
That's
is
what I was
that?
about to say. A pink Rams hat that has nothing underneath it but some lines.
Got to be kidding me.
Right.
This is terrible. This guy's like a big Cowboys fan. And although in baseball, you know his favorite team is, right?
No, Yankees. Yeah, he's a Yankees fan. Yeah, I know.
He's a front runner.
Yeah. He really is. It's pretty clear. Cowboys-Yankees combinations usually are.
That's true. All right. So why don't we do this? I'm going to introduce the new segment, and you can introduce the actual folks that'll be in the new segment. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
right.
I'm all ready.
I'll give the backstory. All right. So I don't know when I started this, but I think it must have been after I started being a part of the Gilmour gang. And I think it might actually be the first time that Steve Gilmour, who is the founder, the moderator, and where Gilmour comes into this whole Gilmour gang thing, he visited us. I think it was one of those Salesforce conferences. I don't think it was Dreamforce.
No.
It was one of those. And we were at this hotel.
The Intercontinental.
The Intercontinental. And we invited him to come over and do a segment, record a segment. This was back when people could actually like get together and be face to face and things like that. So he did it. And as I was introducing him, I think for the very first time, I said, the venerable Steve Gilmour. And I noticed it kind of like recoiled a bit. And of course, when I see something like that, it just makes me want to say it more. So I believe I started saying it more. And then, of course, I kind of started introducing you for certain stuff as the venerable Paul Greenberg, right? And you had the same recoil action that Steve did. And I always thought, venerable is a good thing. Saying something like that. Matter of fact, let me bring this up. So this is Merriam-Webster. right? Calling forth respect through rage, character, and attainments. That's all a
But we're
positive
looking at
thing, right?
that's 1A. We're looking at it as 1B.
Well, impressive.
Yeah, meaning we've managed to live this long.
It's impressive, but it's
That
all
we're still alive.
respect, character, attainments.
Old.
You know,
Old.
respect.
You managed to live this long. We respect you because you're old and have survived somehow.
And then, if you take it a step further, synonyms for venerable, hallowed, revered, reverent, all good stuff, right? And then lastly, other words from venerable.
I, honest to God, thought you made up venerableness.
I thought I did too. I really did until I looked this thing up and I was like, damn. Because I thought they were just playing off of, ridiculousness. I thought, oh, ridiculousness, venerableness. We'll do that. So we thought we'd do, as a matter of fact, I don't know how many people are aware of the MTV show. It's called Ridiculousness, which I thought I was being cute and naming venerableness after that. But this is actually where my idea came from.
Yeah, well, I look just like him.
Here's the
Actually,
rub.
you know what? I have to say, that's a great name for a show.
Look at that.
Way to go. Not bad.
I thought that was
Whoa, video trickery. That was
so
great.
for our very first venerableness segment on CRM Playaz. What did you call it? CRM Playaz what?
Station. CRM Playaz
Station. Why don't you introduce our first two guests for the venerableness segment?
Okay, bring them on after I'm done with both. Okay,
we'll do that.
All right. So we're going to start with the venerable. Venerable. This is my way of distancing myself from the word. Right. We're going to start with the first and foremost with the venerable Steve Gilmour. Now, you've seen Steve. Many of you have seen Steve on the show. He's an incredibly well-known guy throughout both the universe and the metaverse, apparently, too. He is not only a genuine pioneer of what we now call is the social universe, but he was literally the person who created the second ever podcast in the history of podcasts. It has continued through this day as the Gilmour Gang, which of course now gone to live streaming, and Brent's one of the contemporary Gilmour Gang. And not only that, though, Steve has a long history in the world of rock and pop music, in comedy. One thing I will mention, without going into all of his music history, was one of the greatest pioneer comedy teams of all time was the Firesign Theater. I was a huge fan of them in the 60s. They were the same kind of humor you see, well, similar type of humor you see with Saturday Night Live, Steve Martin, the kind of ironic, sarcastic, what's the word I'm thinking of? Satirical humor was their forte and tended to that kind of ridiculousness, but in a way that you actually knew what they were talking about. They were brilliant. Steve was a producer of theirs. I mean, Steve has a history that's shaped in part had played a part in shaping contemporary American culture or contemporary culture, period, really. And now he, of course, is a VP of social strategy at Salesforce. He is he's still carrying the Gilmour Gang out after 20 some odd years. He's a remarkable guy. His insights are tremendous. Now, Michael Maoz.
And all that qualifies him to be called the venerable
Steve Gilmour. I'm just calling him Steve Gilmour. Qualifies him to be called Steve Gilmour. Right. So, right. So now Michael Maoz. Well, Michael is probably, if I'm looking at the last 20 plus years, Michael's probably the most recognized analyst in the tech world of the last 20 plus years. He was, I can't remember the exact title. It's like emeritus they gave him a title.
Was in there somewhere.
Distinguished. That's what it was.
Yeah.
They gave him they literally at Gartner, which was where he was an analyst for most of his career. They actually created a title just for him. If I remember correctly, and I'm sure he can correct us if I'm wrong, he was the most utilized analyst in Gartner's history. He is also among the companies out there, the people out there who are involved in our world, the person who, even though he has a great sense of humor, the person who at the same time still has the most gravitas in terms of how much people trust him, because they've always trusted Michael to be completely honest with them, but honest with insight and also with no malevolence, with compassion, right? And Michael created, one of the creators of CRM as not just a concept idea, but as an actual market and industry. And I met Michael all the way back. He was the first analyst I ever met. That's a story. If he wants me to tell it, I'll tell it. Beyond that, I will not. It was funny. It was a good story. And I met him my first day doing anything as a CRM so-called expert. So these two guys fully qualify as revered, respected.
Keep going.
And I'm not going any further. Revered, respected, and legendary.
And they should add to the definition of venerable gravitas, because I like gravitas. That seems
I'm
to
just
go.
going to call them legends. The legends. That's what I'm calling
the venerable legends. So here we are. No. First up, Steve Gilmour. And wait a minute, Michael. We got 3 dots for Michael Maoz here. He's there.
You are.
Oh,
you're there.
But the audio.
Hear you, but we do not see you.
Let's see if we can do anything about that.
I never got to the Salesforce part even with Michael.
The floating.
There you are.
Is. All right.
Got so caught up in the moment. Hi guys. Hi legends. Hi legends.
So Michael, I told Steve this is going to be all about venerableness. I don't know if Paul described to you.
I told him the name of the segment.
Okay.
Yeah, I was listening the whole time, but considering I fall into the be here now category, I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
He's too young to be a venerable anyway.
Can I just add one thing about, I actually have the best supply chain and customer story. I don't care what your other one is. I've got the better one.
Well, no, my story is about you. Right?
I'm talking about the
supply chain or customers.
I've got to tell this story because
look at Alan Berkson. Alan,
so yeah, this is the best.
You might say
story
this now, but okay, take it away.
Let me tell it. I'm going to tell it. It's like 30 seconds. So I'm in a toy store, as I often find myself, and I am with a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, and the 8-year-old, she's like grabbing me by the arm, and she's like, "Come on over here, come on over here. You got to buy me this." And it's like this loverly inspector play kit. And like, well, why don't you wait till your birthday? Wait till the holidays. She goes, supply chain.
Wow. That's
amazing.
The smartest kid I've ever met. I've ever heard of.
When I was 8 years old, I was screaming, something like the Rams or Dallas sucks or something like that. Not supply chain. That's amazing.
Oh boy, what a great way to get gifts. It's like genius. It is. It's right? Genius.
It's genius. You have to have the lovely inspector cake right now because it's going to be out of stock.
That's right. It's not supply chain.
She got her kit.
Well,
$80 later.
Even as a reward for just saying supply chain, you would kind of give it to her.
That's huge.
You kind of got to do that.
It's like shrinkage.
Shrinkage.
Never mind.
I
wait a minute. Now we're going into
I'm missing a movie reference.
No, we're going to Seinfeld.
Oh, I forgot all
about George. shrink
You
it.
were
Anyway,
so far off from.
So I've
what I
been
was
working with
thinking.
Steve for years. I had no idea that one of my favorites when my uncle taught me about fire sign theater, I had no idea. Nick Danger, Steve has never even alluded to that part of his life.
He's very, Steve, you're very humble about those things.
He
But
really is. I mean,
yeah, I'm not humble for you on that.
Wow.
Sorry.
How can you
I
do it?
think those are monster achievements.
I'm
It's
just waiting for
amazing.
him to ask us questions to try to
Yeah,
throw
right.
everybody
Don't
off
worry,
of
he's
him
working
right
on it.
now. So go
I
ahead.
promised that I would not do that. I rescind my promise, by the way.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that Michael Maoz I've known since before, not long before, but before
aughts,
I
the
started at
19 aughts.
Salesforce. And, you know, all the plaudits don't even get close to
I
how
agree.
smart this guy is.
I agree. Or the impact, Michael, that you had on this whole industry either. I mean, you know, from I am going to tell that story.
Oh, it's a
Actually,
great story, Paul. You have
it
to
is a
tell
great story.
Please
So
do. Because this is
when
what
I
this whole
wrote the
segment is
first
about.
edition of CRM at the Speed of Light, because I became McGraw-Hill's in-house CRM expert, because they, of course, know nothing about CRM. They do this. So they have this annual event, and Terry McGraw himself comes to the event, and everybody basically bows to him. And I mean, really bows to him. Right. And like they told when I was coming, they said, well, I said, do I need a jacket and tie? I still remember this. And they said, no, you can just wear like a jacket, no ties necessary, but you don't even need that. And I go there and everybody, even the guy who tells me I don't need it, is wearing a jacket and tie. Right. And I said, why'd you tell me I don't need a jacket and tie? I said, and for that matter, why are you wearing a jacket and tie? And he goes, well, Terry is. That's what he actually said. That's how they're kissing his butt. Right. So anyway, Michael, Martha Rogers, me, this complete jackass from, I think, Scandia or something like that, on this panel. And Martha and Michael kind of do more the keynote-y side of it. And me and Jackass are more the, panelists doing the thing. And then after that, we go to this, we go up for lunch. Now, I had just been told by my editor at the time, Roger Stewart, who's a wonderful guy, still is a great friend, that McGraw-Hill had undercut massive cuts. They had laid off 3,000 people, shut offices, the whole thing. They take Michael, me, Martha, etc., up to this dining room. When you come off the elevator, you literally feel like you're in British Imperial India in 1880 with rotating fans and that whole Victorian thing going with all the architecture of the room. And they take us into a dining room, and there are these tuxedoed waiters with like claws over their arm, and they give us this menu, and the menu is so extensive. It's had 12 sorbets on the menu, right? I mean, that we had so many options. This is after they said they laid off 3,000 people. And these guys are living the life of a lord in British Imperial India, right? So anyway, I was disgusted by this, and I apparently like showed it without knowing it. So as we're leaving, go on the elevator. Michael comes up on the elevator, looks at me and says, I saw you rolling your eyes in there. He said, couldn't agree more. And from that day on, it was like we were just fast friends. It was that day. I mean, it was like both of us understood what a massive disconnect this was, right? That was going on in this room. Yeah, they had no choice. I didn't bring one, Alan, so I couldn't go in, right? But I went in. I'll never forget that. But that was the day I met him. He had noticed that I was literally rolling my eyes at this thing because I was so disgusted by it. Of course, we didn't leave either. We ate, but at the same time, well, we weren't trying to be impolite particularly, but at the same time, it was really talk about a company that was showing us what a debacle they really were at the time. That was the one. And he and I both kind of nailed it, let's just say, at the same time. And I had heard of him, but I hadn't met him, and same with Martha Rogers, who I met that same day. Wow. And I was just like in love with him, with you, Michael, from that day on. I'll never forget it. Never forget it. It's like 2001, right? So goes all the way back. And Steve, of course, I met at the when they acquired Radian 6 at the Radian 6 their actual first and last user conference. And we just connected so quickly that we had dinner we sat together at dinner. I still remember Steve at that time still had that earring in his ear. I remember thinking, yeah,
really?
Oh, Steve had an earring. Oh yeah. I think Tina made you take it out eventually, right?
Are there any pictures of this? I'd love to see that.
I don't think so. Do you have a picture of Steve with the earring?
No comment.
Okay. But I, again, same thing, immediate love. And then Steve started talking to me about some of his background. And, of course, I lived through that just like he did. And Michael, you probably did, right? You've lived to the tail end of it. And so I was blown away. I was just beyond blown away. I was just like, I'm in the presence not only of this wonderful person, but of history too. And I really felt that, and I still do. So there you have it. There's the rest of my tribute to the two venerable people in this song.
Wait a minute. I think you counted a little low.
Counting perfectly well.
It's like how he took himself out.
Counting exactly right. I'm using collagen.
By reason of age. Just keep that in mind.
All right. I'll just throw something out there.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
After the events of this week, and I know not to be specific with vendors because you guys work at a vendor, but after the events of this week, do you think the metaverse becomes more real, a thing that will actually happen and be significant, or it really still hasn't gotten to that point to be taking it too seriously right now?
Well, to say is the metaverse becoming more real, that's kind of like an oxymoron, isn't it?
Yeah.
See, that's why you guys are venerable. Come on, that's awesome.
Well, that's why you guys are venerable.
No, think about it. It's been going on for a long time, and there's so many different definitions of metaverse, right? So I sit with this kid every day, and we kind of like sometimes go skating, sometimes hit a soccer ball, and sometimes I sit and watch him play Roblox, like 6 years old Roblox, and that's metaverse in training. If you want to think about it, that's really the MIT for 6-year-olds. When think about all the things they're doing, they're completely immersed at almost a daily basis. Hundreds of millions of people are in that thing, and think about the things they're doing. They're different dimensions working. So you have to make really quick, critical decisions about: do I want to give up some coin or gain some coin? Do I want to accelerate and go after? Do I want to go to another level? How much risk do I want to take on? I mean, is this real or is this real? This is real. This is a total reality where they're meeting people, kind of people, but not real people. And when we're talking on a FaceTime or sending me a TikTok, like 6-year-old, he's in the face of a rabbit. He's like talking like him, but he looks like a rabbit. So this is in the sense that we are getting more meta anyway. Ever since we started printing paper and calling this value, and then we said gold represents value, and then it's like, and now we're doing Bitcoin and non-fungible tokens, and we're calling them real. So this is just a step along the way, and I think every major crisis in history has launched another step into like meta stuff, like Dadaism after World War I. Right? And this is just setting things free, and I like that. It's another step into meta that we've been on for hundreds of years.
Well, do you remember the venerable old slogan that we all had in the 60s, which was "You are what you eat"? It's pretty much the same thing that you're talking about.
That came out in the 60s?
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
That was a short film that the band did the music for.
No kidding. The band did the music for that one?
1968. It was John Simon, their producer, was brought to Woodstock in order to pull that together. It was some of the people that did the Dylan documentaries were involved in that.
Amazing. And that expression became timeless, but it goes to the point of, oh, okay, this is value. okay, it's value. I mean, you are you eat, right? It's pretty much what it. So if you want to really go back, you can probably define it from that in effect that movie, not literally, but you
What
know
is that,
that
Mrs.
the
Mrs.
idea.
Robinson? Would they start talking about all the
No, Mr.
industries?
Robinson was. You mean the song?
When, well, The Graduate. Is it The Graduate?
Yeah, The Graduate. That wasn't the.
That
When
was
the guy he goes around and every person he talks to says, "You need to go into this. You need to go into
Plastic.
that."
No, it's
Yeah,
plastic.
Whatever. I
Movie.
wasn't around really for that. So just
notice
we
how he
weren't.
just moved out of the venerable category.
It was quite the assumption.
So
Steve,
in violation of my role here, Michael, can you explain if you think there's some sort of significance of the metaverse to the enterprise?
Yeah, to the enterprise. I mean, just think about what some of the football teams in Europe are doing right now. We call them soccer teams, but they're football teams. What are they doing? Like some of the clubs are starting to give out these tokens, and for being fans. And the more tokens you have, the more credibility you have, the more you get to influence. You get to influence kind of what kind of merch they're selling, what kind of food they're selling, what kind of partnerships they get into. This metaverse stuff is going to mean a lot to businesses that are trying to do things like provenance, right? To move into more meta. And now I actually know Brent Leary when he says he's A, B, C, D, E, F. Like, what the hell do I know? He put it on LinkedIn. It's all a bunch of deep fake garbage, right? But now I'm using something like a blockchain, and I've got certificates, and everything he says, it has a provenance. And now we can be as meta as you want. It's there. So I can certify that the people I partner with are ethical, that they are inclusive, that there's supply chain, that there's governance, there's sustainability. It's all there vetted. And if I wanted to own something virtual, I could never actually own something virtual because everything on the internet is infinitely replicable. But now I can use the metaverse to say, no, this is mine. You brought up LeBron, right? I own a great slam dunk of LeBron. I own that. Only me, right? It's mine. It's like, that's very meta. Yeah, well, what is art anyway? What the hell is it? I'm looking at this picture on my wall. It's not, I didn't create that. Someone else created it. It's a lithograph. There are 100 more. But this slam dunk, it belongs to me, buddy, not you. So I think, commercially, they're going to be all those things I just talked about ESG, that's all going to be the sustainability thing, all around the supply chain, all around identity. It's going to open up incredible vistas. And even in medical care, medical certifications, vaccine certifications, it's almost endless what you can do with the metaverse.
So we got Christy asking, explain metaverse in 10 words or less.
It's a very
you can't do it in 10 words or less.
Right. There's the explanation.
Sorry, Christy.
That was less than 10 words.
That was that's right. Well,
Right.
Steve,
That's a meta
what do you
thing
think?
about metaverse.
We're
That was mine.
Who?
That
was a
my
venerable
actual
ringtone.
That's
if I
my
ever heard it.
ringtone. That's
Yes,
my
sir.
ringtone.
I know it wasn't mine.
I always think that's hilarious because it's my phone saying, "Who are you?" Right, so coming in, and it's the who.
So, Steve, give us your thoughts on what role do you think, since we it sounds like we're definitely going in that direction. What role will it play in not only consumers, but in the enterprise going forward?
Well, I think that, well, first of all, what Michael said, I thought was the answer is yes, it is significant for the enterprise. But I also, I think Michael and I both worked for a guy, Mark Benioff, who, in my opinion, had the subtle insight to observe the consumer space and then move it to the enterprise space. So I think that we're going to see a lot coming from, there's an argument underway about what Web3 is. And personally, I couldn't care less. But but there's certainly a lot of excitement about how do you create these cow paths, if you will, so that you can then get all that goodness that Michael mentioned on top of it. How does it get funded? How does it get built out? What is the impact of open standards on that development? And I think they're starting to fight that out right now in what's allegedly called the media. And I just want to give a shout out to you guys because this is one of the first examples, I think, of an enterprise-focused media play that the only answer to it on the part of the so-called mainstream media is to absorb it.
That's what we're looking for. Be acquired.
Yeah, 70 billion. We'll go with just 70 billion.
Yeah,
we appreciate that. I mean,
no, I don't. It's not a compliment. It's an observation.
Okay, it's an insult. That's a proof of. That's just a proof of crotchety and old, not venerable.
Thank you.
Right, it's not a compliment.
I'll take it. Get off my.
That's all right. Hey, Steve, and then Michael follow. Maybe you can follow with after Steve here. You will do a lot of focusing around the cultural aspects of this. Look at your newsletter. They tend to be focused really around cultural impact and also impact on culture, right? Not just the impact of the culture, but on the culture of varying things, regardless of, sometimes they're media specific, sometimes they're technology specific, sometimes they're, but things that have impact or are impacted. Now we're dealing with, the metaverse, unfortunately, is a gigantic hype machine too. And so there's so much, every company in their messaging, and about a fourth of the analyst community at this point too are using the metaverse in their offerings, one way or the other, and it's all kind of stupid. But ultimately they're just using the word. They're really not doing anything necessarily, unless maybe they're doing some, AR. Somebody owns a Vive, HTC Vive or something, look at tell us more from the actual impact on the culture and how that's going to impact. Look, we're all in the world of enterprise tech or tech, really, more than just the enterprise, but business tech, I'll call it. But obviously the gaming side impacts us, aside from being a gigantic business. We've heard a lot of discussion around the acquisition of Activision, the amount of data that's going to be available for other things. To me, a lot of it's going to be interesting from the standpoint of how they compete with things like Steam and, those kind of other gaming side, because it's a $200 billion industry. So the question below is more to me, okay, those things are great. We see metaverse, games, AR, VR, and practical activity on a day-to-day basis without a headset. But ultimately, you're talking about cultural impact, which is really where it's going to have the most profound impact. So how do you see that? And maybe I'm wrong about what I'm saying, if I am, but how do you see that, Steve? Because you really have a really strong focus on culture.
I don't know if I have a focus on culture. What I do know is that every time I see something that I think is interesting to me, it usually comes from the consumer space. So I don't see it as having an impact on it. I think that it's the driver of it. And that, I think technologists take a look at that energy, and then they figure out how to be able to harness it for business and for creativity. I was just listening the other night to a Clubhouse. And I'm constantly on the gang, constantly reviled by this guy in the upper left-hand corner here, among others, for my fascination with Clubhouse and live audio in general. But this was a conversation with the director of the movie Don't Look Up. Have any of you seen it?
Yeah.
I
didn't love it.
I
as
enjoyed
much
it.
as most people.
Yeah.
It was all right.
All right. Yeah. I feel the same way.
Overdone message
Yeah,
me.
it was all right, but
Yeah.
but the space, or in this case, the Clubhouse room, was fascinating because I come from a background of technology, coming from directing and producing in the creative spaces. So to me, this was a gold mine of information that was being served out in real time, in a conversation where the director and two of his producers were basically describing the difficulties of how they navigated the pandemic, which, as he says in this show, was they didn't even had vaccines hadn't even been invented at this point when they were starting production, and that the impact on that, and also the intersection of his script. He wrote the movie, and the improvisations that he encourages and navigates with his actors. Leonardo DiCaprio, evidently an amazing improvisationalist. This is when you mentioned the Fireside Theater, what they gave, I think, to us all was this ability to sound like they were improvising, but actually it's all tightly scripted.
Huh.
Now there is an element of that in interchange, but so how that lights up this conversation, that anybody can just turn on their phone and listen in, and possibly if they have something interesting to say, there were a bunch of questions coming from the audience. This is a profoundly disruptive technology, and we are at so early days of it. But to see this kind of thing happening this is going to go, as I think somebody said on the gang about this. This is going to go to every business and corporation and theater, and everything else is going to be annotated based on this technology or something like it, like what we're doing here. That's a big deal.
Can I just make one clarification of the Venerable Steve Gilmour's characterization of my thoughts on Clubhouse? I just didn't understand it as a standalone. I think the technology and the live audio will just be integrated into the current platforms, or maybe somebody will buy Clubhouse. But no, I think the technology and integrating live audio is definitely an important component, but not as a standalone.
I tend to agree. I see it as a backstage or an after party, really. I mean, the value in that, meaning all those conversations that go on after the event, Clubhouse is a good place to have them. I've always seen it that way, to be honest. Once I figured out, I was kind of waiting for all the celebrities to get off it, because I figured eventually the flame would die and the Maoz would leave, right? And
that means you're waiting for Steve to get off of it, then.
No.
I've never been on it. I mean, I've done one of those things, but I'm sorry, Paul, you were interrupted by
No. Go ahead, Steve. I don't
mind.
Me. If you're interrupting me, I'm happy. If Michael interrupts me, I'm happy. Brent too. You can interrupt.
Well, I've talked about this off screen with Michael Maoz several times, and the thing that he said to me, in his early assessment of this, is he said, I'm fascinated by this. I'm not sure why, or if it's important or not. I mean, I'm paraphrasing Michael's reaction to it, but I think that when you see these, there was a characteristic of Clubhouse and also Twitter Spaces of not being able to record, and that kind of locked in over the past 2 months or so. And then they developed these replay functions where the ability to listen to a room or a conversation was preserved after the actual live recording. And my feeling is that this is going to promote small groups of people who are looking for certain kinds of information to band together. And there's a new feature on Clubhouse, to your comment, Brent, about standalone. There's a new feature called Share with Clubhouse, where you can basically take a room you're listening to and share it to the rest of the people who follow you or you follow. I'm not sure which, but to me, that's going to create this kind of community aspect of this thing, which is going to immediately lead to leaderboards, to top replays, which this show that I was just telling you about jumped to the top of the top replays and it has stayed there for a couple of weeks. Eventually that's going to sort itself out into something other than just the celebrity aspects of this. I mean, remember that this happened with Twitter as well. It started being all about recommended users and all of that stuff. And I'm not sure it's yet survived that issue, but certainly it's now recognized that Twitter is, everybody in the Congress and in the government basically has a Twitter account, except for people who, thank God, don't have it anymore. So I just think that this is something that not to be pigeonholed as being about standalone. And I think that the standalone issue is that the driver of these new studio community features is right now it's Clubhouse. The rest of these other companies that are getting in are going to have a hard time keeping up with all of the innovations from all of these competitors and drive the market forward.
Hey, Michael, what's your take on all that?
Clubhouse, I don't really have a response. I think, with the metaverse, if you think about it from a very high level, religious belief was our metaverse. And over generations, the priests are gone. And the new priests are the internet. And as everything is digitized, we're giving more and more things up to algorithms. I can't read the weather anymore. People in cities can't tell wind directions. They don't know, where's the sun? Well, it's setting. They don't know what day of the moon it is. It's the 19th day of the moon today. Who the hell knows or cares? You have an algorithm, you have AI, you have a digital analog for everything you need. So the metaverse is a natural progression of everything we're doing. And we have, it's nothing pernicious about it. And I would argue that during a pandemic, it's been a blessing for many, many people. But with the advances of the web, if you want to call it, think about 5G and bandwidth together with algorithms and AI. It has so much potential to get us back to where we started. We started life in tribes where we knew everyone, where we could be authentic. And the metaverse, in a very paradoxical way, is giving us the opportunity to reestablish ourselves in the digital world, the same authenticity that we had starting out.
Ooh, actually, that raises a big question, which is defining authenticity in a digital world versus what we're used to as authenticity.
Or even if we're kind of replicating real life into the metaverse, does that mean we're just replicating the errors and the foibles and the biases that we have in the real world into the metaverse, where everything gets scaled up and spread out, so the bad stuff gets bigger and spread faster in the metaverse than it does in real life?
And on the other side of that, of course, Brent, there's going to be that, as in any medium, there are going to be missteps and malevolent agents. But on the other hand, the reason I was talking about these new certificates, these virtual certificates, that I'm going to know your provenance. I'm going to know that you're the real deal, or you're not the real deal. And right now, there's so much in the way of this thing, deep fakes, where a cheerleader can be shown to be, doing something lascivious or pornographic. It turns out it's a deep fake, but there was no certificate behind it, so it was obvious that it was fake. And so I think that there are going to be safeguards, and in the same way in social communities, which Paul did so much to bring to light, right, as self-healing systems where the members do out the falsity and they do reinforce the positive. I think we're going to have that virtuous cycle that's really going to be a self-cleansing aspect to the metaverse.
Any timetable on that kind of thing?
Well, we're just in the beginning, right? This is we think we're so far along with all this, but we are just in baby steps. Even though when you and I started the CRM space, I remember doing a study with we won't name the company, paid them a lot of money, $50,000, and it came back and said CRM might be a $500 million industry. Trying to get money for our company. And, here it is, $60, $70 billion later, still growing at 13, 15%. So, predictions are difficult, especially as regards the future, as Einstein used to say. But I think there is going to be this iterative quality to it. There's going to be a heuristic where, we're going to go forward. There'll be a false step, and like Second Life, there'll be our Second Life, and then we'll overcome it, and we'll get into the next one. So I'm completely positive about it all, and being an optimist or whatever, a realistic optimist. I think that we're going to find that it brings a lot more harm in reality, it'll help us. Hopefully, there'll be empathy in it too. But I think we're in the first inning. So this is baseball. We're probably going to go into overtime like we have right now with the show. But I think we're really only probably entering the second inning.
Okay.
Can I just say, I don't really consider myself a glass half empty person, but one of the things I'm kind of very wary of, I guess, is the potential for metaverse, whatever form it takes, to be controlled by a very small group, which can move the needle any way they want to. And it's kind of just maybe the traditional way of looking at it, except 200 years ago, there was a small group of people that had the most of the resources, but it took them a decent amount of time to gather the power they need, and then just try to move things in the direction. And then you had the antitrust laws come along and trust bust. But that was like physical, and it took years and decades. My only issue with the metaverse is things are so sped up that control can be wrestled away and implemented in such a shorter amount of time, but it could reach a bigger audience. And that's maybe the biggest concern I have for all this.
I've been joking for months about how I'm focused on the DC comic version of it, which is the multiverse, right? And because that's already been resolved, right? But when it comes to, there is one thing that we sort of talk about and don't talk about and talk about. Right now, the metaverse is pretty much in reality, as opposed to, again, marketing use, is pretty much device driven, meaning you got to wear something to participate in the AR, VR side of it. Like maybe it'll be more sophisticated things like glasses at some point, which is already in the, on the way for the AR side. But you're wearing devices on your head, and at the moment, and to a large extent, you're decoupling that activity from your normal time, right? It's not part of your normal routine, right? It's not your day to day. You have a world you live in that every day you do things in that you either used to doing, have to do, circumstantially occurrences happen that you need to take care of. that's the world you've always lived in, and the world you've been living in, and the world will continue to live in to a large extent, meaning, it's your life, right? But
Yeah.
at the
You know,
moment,
Paul,
the metaverse is a disruption in your life still.
yeah, I mean, I'm pretty certain that we're going to see a continuation of the privacy laws. Things that are like GDPR are going to extend into the metaverse, and it's not going to be that long. 3, 5, 6 years, where each of us is going to be able to select what is known about us, and the rest will be erased. So you're going to have the neural miners, the Googles and the AWS and the whoever, I don't want to mention technology companies, that sure, they're going to try to mine you, which why would I buy another, 500 million users to add to my 2 billion users? It's not to mine your data. But there's going to be that sort of neural mining going on. At the same time, there's going to be the counter force of the privacy advocates who are going to let you using technologies like a blockchain and certificates to filter out what could be known about you, what you will give up, what will be accessible on nodes on the internet at 3G, 4G, 5G, whatever comes after it. So, you have to be sanguine about it and cautious, but I do think that over time, there's going to be that. And to someone's comment, it's not going to be, metaverse is going to be just like internet. It's going to be one for doctors doing remote care, and there's going to be another one for remote learning, and there's going to be another one for every subsegment of life science and sports and private communities versus public businesses and governments. So I don't think you can stop thinking about two things. One are the standards and the infrastructure layers that you're going to have, privacy layers, security layers, from the articulations of it, which are going to come through things like industries and come through things like individual communities of people starting up. So it's not to get too complicated, but it's going to really be a hub and spoke, and the hub is going to be the technology standards and infrastructure, and the spokes are going to be how, just like in real life, how each one of us expresses who we are.
So let me say one last thing before you get to Thomas's questions on
Okay,
this.
good. Okay.
Because I think that's probably, Stevie also has the same question for you. So that might be a good way to close. But let me say this. To me, when the metaverse evolves to the point it's genuinely going to be successful, it goes from being an event to a moment, basically. Meaning, it the same way what triggered that thought was what you said about the internet. When the internet was first becoming something available to consumers, it was a special thing. It was, some people had, 400 baud modems, and, some people had even as much as 1,200 baud modems, and some people would get on, and but not everybody ubiquitously used it as just part of the way they conduct their day-to-day life. To me right now, the metaverse is the actions taken as in the metaverse are events in someone's life, meaning they stand out, they're special, they have to get to the point where they're so culturally assimilated that they're not unique. They're moments in the life of a person doing what a person does, and which is what the internet's become, right? That now people think, how do you live without it, right? Now people do live without it, but that's a genuine question people have because it's so ubiquitous and so accepted as a legitimate way of participating, communicating, and interacting. So that's kind of where I think it needs to go. And at that point, sure, I think to everybody's point, we're at the really early part of this. I think right now, just like Clubhouse from the beginning of Clubhouse, right? You have to separate, get the celebrities out of the way, get the marketing out of the way, and then start looking at what it really can do, and then start working on that. And then, Clubhouse, to Steve's point, does have real value. But it's, to me, I wrote a long post on this on ZDNet if people want to find it about a year ago, basically saying, here's the crap about it, but here's what's underneath that crap, and that you can't ignore what's underneath.
Yeah, and
right?
I think that's what Thomas is asking, right? What value do you see for an individual coming out of the metaverse? That's to your point. It's you think about the metaverse right? There's just like in real life, there's society, they're societal, they're political, they're economic, they're cultural. But I can see, just for example, I've got an aging father who, is he taking his damn pills or not? Is he upright or not? Can I see or advise him from a distance? Technicians are already doing metaversal things. I don't want to go into the Fukushima reactor and fix stuff, but I could send my drone. I could visualize the whole thing and use my digital twin to fix it from remote, right? So the metaverse in some ways already has instances, many instances, and also in entertainment we've talked about them. In societal, we're going to have to figure that out. But there's so many concrete examples, both for pleasure, in arts and games, and also in business, that it's going to have so many more benefits than it's going to have things cautions. We always had the Luddite in us that's fearful of change. Of course it is, and it's natural. But on the other hand, that's where we're going. We're going into the metaverse one way or another. It's just a matter of at what pace each of us takes each part of our life.
Yep. Amen. Steve?
I've been waiting to listen to Michael, and now I've been able to listen to Michael. This is the metaverse for me. Seriously. I mean, what more do we want than the ability to listen to people who are smarter than we are?
Okay. I have to turn to an 8-year-old.
I was getting ready to say the most profound thing in this 70, 80 minutes or so, although there's been a lot of profound things, is that an 8-year-old is talking about the supply chain. To me,
none of that, to get something she wanted too, so she had a direct application.
She knew a direct application. Yeah.
To me, that's a whole. That's probably more astounding than all the metaverse stuff that we just talked about. Now, part of that is because she's reacting to the way we're going and that's the metaverse. But the fact that 8-year-olds are doing that.
Yeah, but Brad, let me tell you another one. And I think I told Paul this one. 5-year-old. Now there's a 5-year-old. Go back. Wow. And I'm trying to get this cat to put on a jacket, right? So I go get your damn jacket. It's cold out. She doesn't even look at me. She turns and she goes, Alexa, what's the weather today? It's going to be 64 degrees in South Salem. No jacket.
Wow. That's amazing.
This is a meta world, man. And think about it. They're starting life as 5-year-olds and 8-year-olds. They're already meta. They're
all meta natives.
They're
right?
meta natives, just like
meta natives.
We're internet immigrants, but our kids are internet natives. These kids are meta natives, and that's where it's going.
Oh man,
what a way to end.
That's amazing.
Well, I have to say, this has been a successful first session of the CRM Playaz Station Venerables. It will not be the last, folks. This is great. Seriously,
this is amazing.
That was really great.
Thanks for having me. You probably know, Brent, that I've loved Paul literally like a brother for decades. And Steve, it's a great honor. I mean, it's just such a great honor he's so humble and reticent about his accomplishments. And I've been following you, without ever getting to meet you, Brent. So it's very cool. It's kind of a little dream come true. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you. Well, and before we let Steve go, do you want to tell us what's up tomorrow on Gilmour Gang?
Yeah, well, we don't have a time limit on the gang, so it'll probably be until the last dog dies, basically.
Right. I did notice that every time I listen in, it's Steve goes, well, Brent has a hard stop at 4:00, or Brent has it's like that's how it ultimately ends, with
Thank
all
God.
the different hard stops over time. I because what happened every Friday, I'm usually doing something, but I turn on the Gilmour Gang anyway and listen. I can't see it sometimes, but
that's another one of those compliments that I can.
All right, Steve. What's your favorite? What's your favorite of all time Nick Danger line? Do you have one? You might not have one. I'm just wondering.
I just bought a whole bunch of CDs of them.
Oh my gosh, you got to listen. Everyone's got to listen to them.
Yeah. Phil Austin was Nick Danger, and there was a guy who was a musician in a comedian's clothing.
Uh-huh.
He was, you just couldn't get your finger on how amazing this guy was, and then he would just. So to me, the whole character of Nick Danger.
You got to bring it. You got to do a show one time.
Nick Danger, Guy Noir.
Yeah, or the whole sign, Fire Sign Theater.
They're the greatest.
How can you be in two places at one time, right? How can you be in two places at one time when you're nowhere at all?
There you go. There are people on the gang, Frank Radis, for example, who is constantly spitting out Fire Sign references to the point of nauseum, because most of the people who watch or listen to that show actually have heard of him, but that means that the rest of the universe hasn't.
No, my kids I drive my kids crazy with it. Like Moses, behold the mount. Aaron, no, she's a beaut. Rat pretty too.
You're asking me for a quote? See,
I love these guys.
I'm with you. I am so with you. Look, so I have one memory on this. When I was in college, I was probably a sophomore or junior. I can sort of picture the room, but I can't remember what dorm I was in. And I just remember, see, the Firesign Theater stuff was always carried in Chicago on the midnight special. That's what it was. So you had to stay up, and they play Let the Midnight Special was their theme. And there would be a show that would start at midnight, and it would be all kind of the, new wave stuff of the time, the experimental stuff that people were trying to do. It was a great show. I used to love it. It was the music, the comedy, and the Firesign Theater were probably the most singularly staple part of that show. I would listen to it. Let's say it was once a week, I think it was Wednesday at midnight. I would listen, and the Firesign Theater won at probably 3 out of every 4 episodes. And then the 4th one would not be on. But that's how I grew to love them. And once I got to know who the Firesign Theater was, even when I was exhausted and I was tired and I just want to go to sleep, I'd stay up anyway. It didn't matter. I was going to listen.
There's a clip on the internet right now of George Martin telling his grandchildren why he signed the Beatles. And the reason is that he didn't think much of the drummer, the original drummer. He didn't think their material was particularly good, but he just liked these guys. He started hanging out with them. And in the first meeting, George Martin sort of ended the meeting by saying, this is the producer, and he was the head of A&R for Parlophone at that point. And his previous experience that he brought to this was producing records with the forerunners of Firesign and Monty Python, the Goon Show. Yeah.
Goon Show.
So he produced records with them. In Sgt. Pepper, there's a laugh in the beginning of the Sgt. Pepper song. That's from a live recording of the Goon Show, or of
Benny Hill.
No.
That's my guy.
I know.
The guy, Peter Cook, Dudley Moore.
Other
guys, Beyond the Fringe. It was a recording from one of these shows. So that's the context. And so he said, well, at the end of the meeting, he said to the Beatles, well, is there anything you don't like about this, our get together here? And George Harrison said, yeah, I don't like your tie. And at that point, he was basically saying to George Martin, no, you think we're auditioning for you. You're auditioning for us. And at that point, George Martin decided, yeah, I'm going to hang out with these guys. And the rest is still
definite history. History being written to this day. Amazing.
This is so cool. This literally turned into a Gilmore Gang episode.
No comment.
It works, but it works. It was just we just call it
crossover.
I'm sure Michael's been backed up now with back-to-backs into the sunset. So
I have been on the phone since 9:30 this morning, but it's all good. Here in the East Coast, but it's all good. It was such a pleasure. And I'm going to say adios.
Awesome.
We thank you for doing this, taking time. So, on behalf of the venerable Michael Maoz and the even more venerable Steve Gilmour.
I'm smiling.
I'm Brent Leary.
Really.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Players, and we can't end until you get a little taste of Minnie.
Minnie.
I called her Winnie. Minnie.
I know.
See ya.